Hello, my name is Connie Giles. I am a master gardener of Hamilton County in Chattanooga. Today, I want to talk about container gardening. What we're going to do in this presentation is I'm going to show you and point out some advantages and disadvantages of container gardening. We're going to look at some slides and I'm going to illustrate how the container works with design principles and elements. We're going to look at the actual containers, go over them. We're going to talk about what soil goes in your container, fertilizers, and we're going to talk about how to maintain your garden through the summer growing season. So the first one I want to start with is the advantages of container gardening. It is for the beginner and the expert gardeners. It adds style and beauty to your garden. They are versatile and mobile. You can use different plants in your container garden: shrubs, trees, vegetables, herbs, annuals, and perennials, for example. You can choose specific plants in your containers. You want a butterfly plant or a pollinator plant, put those in your container. They create interest by being a focal point. They complete a small space and add to a larger one. Container garden adds ambience and brings us pleasure. You get to play in the garden. The disadvantages is you have to frequent water and fertilize. Also, you need to develop a vision of what that container garden is going to look like in a couple of months. Let's start our slideshow. Make a statement. We have some cannas. You have some a little drama with the texture of the canna leaves right there, the pattern on the canna leaves, add a little bit of drama. You have some depth with your petunias, and there is your sage right there, and your dusty miller. So let's go to the next one. That is a blast of color. It is a contrast of color using red against green, and on your color scale, you can see that it is complementary colors. It's directly across the color scale from each other. You have a lot of pattern going on with your twin spur right here. You have some coleus right there, beautiful color of coleus, and the flax and the vertical lines with the creeping jenny. The tiny treasures. It is obvious to me that the containers are the show of this slide. They are 8-inch containers. You need to start with a 14 to 16-inch container. The more soil, the less water. And I don't know anyone that would put an arborvitae in an 8-inch container. All right, the desert colors. It is a much bigger picture than what I could put on this slide, but it is in scale. You have a 24-inch container and the plants are high. I'm going to talk about scale in one of the later slides. Okay, let's see here. Simple touch. I love this slide simply because you've got concrete against concrete. You've got a simple concrete planter, and you've got a beautiful purple shamrock in that. It is also visually connected with your, what is that behind it? I can't think, but anyway, my eye goes all the way back there when I look at that container. Now, I want to talk to you about putting one plant in one container. You can do that as long as you make it spectacular. If you have a planter that your mother has passed down to you, that you want everyone to see that, then don't put a plant in there that is going to override the attention of that planter. That's how that works. Next, we have blended reds. It is color coordinated. deep red on the banana leaves coordinate with the flowering maple right there. It is, to me, is the wrong scale. The banana tree is almost outgrown, has almost outgrown the planter. So it probably needs to be uprooted a little bit, upgraded a little bit. All right, next one is minimal. I love the look of this. This is the idea of putting 3 containers together. They are the same shape. They are the same color. You can put different plants in there and it will still be, it will still make an impact. And what happens here is there's some line going on here. There's an angled line going on there. That makes it work. And it's unified. It's the grouping of 3 planters makes an impact. There's some rhythm going on there with the trees and the hen and chicks. All right, and then you have varying sizes and visually connected. The next one is color emphasis. This is my favorite container of all. You've got the caladium and the philodendron and the Rex begonias vine down there. And this planter right here, the pink in the leaves are contrasting with the green in the philodendron leaves. And how you know that is you look on your color wheel and you'll see red right there and pinks right below it. So when you add a tint to a color, that's what's working on this planter right here. Plus the fact it is a spear, there's a line there, it is a spear. And this container is balanced. There is not one plant that takes away from the whole, and that's called balance. The vertical garden, okay? It is alignment. That's what this is called. And what happens is when your eye's going to look down here, and then it's going to go directly up there. That's vertical alignment. And if your your plant was hanging up here somewhere, it wouldn't do that. But this works because of that. Plus the fact it is hiding a fence and some siding right there. So there's hot and cool. I chose this slide simply because the vivid color of the red right here, if you put that in a container, it would just overshadow everything. So what they have done is put a play of color in this container. They have actually put some white and some silver to cool that red down. All right, the last slide I want to show you is think outside the box. This is just a beautiful slide to me. I want you all, if you don't take anything from this lesson today, I want you to think about what you have in your garage or in your garden that works as a container garden. You want to, if you've got a watering can or something like that, it can be a container garden as long as there's good drainage. We're going to talk about that right now. All right, let's talk about the containers. The first thing you want to do is you want a clean container. You want to start with a clean container and you want to end with a clean container. And by that, I mean when you bring that container home from the nursery or the big box stores or something like that, you want to get a gallon of water with a teaspoon of Clorox. You want to get a hose and hose that container down and wipe it out real good with that Clorox water. Now then, you're going to think of your containers as a piece of furniture or accessory in your garden. Will it be the center of attention, or will it quietly blend and harmonize with other elements in the garden? Will it play a starring role or a supporting role in developing the look for your garden? You're going to consider budget, ease, style. Ease of difficulty of movement can affect your selection and location of your container. The number one rule on containers, it has to have drainage, sufficient drainage. Let's look at some of them. You have plastic, limited durability, and sun and frost, they can fade. Okay, and sometimes if you don't bring your plastic container in for the winter, frost and freeze can actually crack it. So you might, I learned this while researching this presentation, you might want to use a plastic liner for other pots. And plastic is lightweight, variable, a variety of styles, sizes, and colors, moderate to high cost. So you can get every color, every size in a plastic container. Glazed ceramic, it's more durable than terracotta or clay. It's moderate cost. You usually use it with contemporary settings, moderate to high cost. It is non-porous. Wood, I always think of a window box with wood. It's rugged, it's frost and sunproof. Redwood, cedar, and are some of your choices. Moderate to heavyweight, informal and formal uses. One thing about wood, you want to line your wood container. Otherwise, water and wood is going to break down. Water is going to break wood down. Concrete, heavy. A square cubic foot of concrete weighs 144 pounds. So you have to make your concrete container in place. It's heavy. It's versatile styles. You can have low to medium to high cost. It's normally formal. Galvanized metal, lightweight, usually informal, and the thing about metal is if you put metal in full sun, it's going to heat up your soil and it may bake your roots. So I always want to put metal in shade. Clay, now the difference between terracotta and clay, you know, are the firing temperatures of the kilns that they're made in. But anyway, clay, you can get any size. You can get a lot of different shapes in clay. The bigger, the heavier. They're informal. They generally low to medium cost, and you want to handle with care on a clay pot. It can chip. They chip easily. Cast iron has to have proper drainage, lasts forever. Fertilizer can be corrosive. Very heavy, challenge to move. You want to make it in place. Usually used in cottage gardens and Victorian gardens. Synthetic, that's your fiberglass and your resin containers. They're usually tough. They don't age well. The surface does not age well. They're lightweight though. They're frostproof and traditional settings. So next we want to talk about plants. Okay, you let your light shine. You just select any light any plant that you want to select, as long as you answer the light requirements. You know that. And then the next thing, you're going to make a list of the plants you want to buy before you go. I always look through container magazines, look through my books, and generally they will tell you how many plants you will have to buy for that container, and it will tell you the light requirements and everything like that. You want to make sure that the conditions that you select your plants are the correct light requirements for that plant. How many? For a 14 to 16-inch container, you are going to use 5 to 7 plants. I'm not talking about the bedding plant. I'm talking about the 3-inch cups at least. The bedding plants you can put as fillers around your container. You want top grade plants. What do I mean by that? I mean, when you select your plants at the nursery, you're going to turn that plant over, you're going to gently tap on it, and you're going to lift that container up off of the plant roots. If the plant roots are bound, then that's going to be an indication that it may not be a plant that has that's fresh. It may be a plant that has had one growing season. So you may want to look at another plant. Also, you want to smell the soil. If the soil smells earthy, you're good to go. If it has a soured smell, don't buy that plant. Okay, you want to look for problems with your plant. You want to look at the roots. You want to inspect underneath the leaves. You want to dig down in the dirt a little bit of it and see if there's any indication of problems with that plant. Check for insects. You know how to do that. You're going to look at the root and then look at the underneath the leaves and everything. Is the plant clearly labeled? You want to know what this plant is. You want to know how it grows. You want to know how tall it gets. You want a plant that is labeled, and you want to hold on to those labels, because next year you may want that same plant in your container garden. Okay, next thing I want to talk to you about plants is you don't have to just put a filler, and a spiller in a plant. It makes an impact if you will put one plant in a container. For example, I use a whitewashed clay pot with Shasta daisy. It's just beautiful. All right. Now then, I have some information for you all that I will send out after this. I will talk about that after about our presentation. But I have a list of plants that are thrillers and fillers and spillers, and I have a veteran master gardener look over this list, and she approved it. So if you want that information, I can provide that for you. All right. Now then, let's talk about soil. You want a container formulated soil. I amend it. A standard soil offers the basic elements. A premium grade has fertilizers, a wetting agent, and water retentive polymers. The soil I use is called Miracle Grow. It's called Potting Mix, and it has 4 containers on there. You want to check the labels on the bag. It should start with sorghum peat moss. It should have some composted pine bark in it and perlite. You want to work with a moist soil. If you open the bag of soil and it's dry, if you pick it up and it's dry, put some warm water in that bag and get your soil workable. What you want it to do is when you pick it up in your hand, when you squeeze it, you want it to fall right back out. You do not want soil that when you squeeze it, it wads up. That's too hard for your roots to go through. You don't want any compost, topsoil, or planting soil. They're too heavy. You never want to reuse old soil. Now, my formula for my container gardens, and it works for me every time, you're going to have, I add vermiculite, and I'll tell you why. It is a water retentive. It has water retentive properties in it. So I may not have to water as much. If I select a plant that likes wet feet, I will put a lot of vermiculite in there. I also add some perlite, a little scoop of perlite, and then I add some sand in there, especially if I have a succulent. I will put a lot of sand in there. And what you're doing is keeping the pH of your soil between 6.5 and 7.2, which is neutral. Now, if you want to plant azaleas or acid-loving plants, then you need to get soil specific for that plant. This is just your general soil. Okay, next, we want to talk about fertilizers. The slow release fertilizer. My example right here is Osmocote. These are resin balls called preels that have the nutrients in them. You will have your macronutrients in there and some micronutrients in there. So it is slow release. How this works is it works when the soil temperature rises of your planter and when the water hits it. The only disadvantage of a slow release fertilizer is you don't know how much of it is used up. Next is the water soluble. That looks like, my example is this right here. I use this a lot. I use it every other watering of my container garden, and it comes in a powder form. This does. You can get it in a liquid form, but it comes in a powder form, and you can you can water this every other watering, about 7 to 10 days. The hotter it gets, the more water you're going to have to do. The only thing about water soluble is if your container is out in the garden, the rain is very likely to wash the fertilizer out of it. So, but it is used by the plant. And it does have some additional nutrients in it. You can read the label right here on the back. So, and it'll give you instruction. Now, there's some bloom buster fertilizer. It looks like that right there. Mine does, okay? It's for blooms. It's the highest, it will have the highest phosphorus middle number on it. Now, your Osmocote and the other will have high nitrogen number on it, but that'll be a high nitrogen number. But your bloom busters have your middle number, the high number on that. So let's talk a little bit about organic fertilizers. Under the umbrella of organic fertilizers, you have blood, bone, and let's say cottonseed meal that are byproducts of a living organism. That's one fertilizer. And then you also have your elements. You have copper and zinc in your fertilizers. So now, organic fertilizers, they are slow release. There's only one disadvantage. Balance is extremely important. How much blood meal do you put? How much bone meal do you put? That's hard to regulate. Trust me on that, I know. Okay, now then, maintaining your garden. If you walk out at your garden and your soil has pulled away from the side of the container, the plant is dehydrated. You need to submerge that container in a tub of water and get the water back in there. Otherwise, you're going to, you always want to slow water your containers. You don't just need to pour a pitcher of water on there, and if it runs out, you say it's hydrated, it's got enough water. It doesn't. You want to pour your water on there slowly and consistent. You need to be consistent with your watering. And your built-in trays on the bottom of your plants container help with that. You want to always fertilize. When it says my osmote, I will start with that. I spread that in 1 to 3 inches of my soil when I start with my container. It will feed up to 3 months, but how do you know? How do you know? So I will come back and I will mix up, when I see that my plant is dry, I'll mix up some water-soluble fertilizer and pour that in there, okay? So you want to periodically check for insects and troubleshoot. If it's a pesticide, if it's any kind of spider or anything, or a fungus, you want to buy the correct product for that problem. You want to groom your container. You want to deadhead, trim it up, remove unsightly foliage. You want to encourage compact growth. By that I mean you want to cut them off sometime, and remove weeds and mulch. The last thing I do is, when I clean my container up, I have it planted, the last thing I do is add about a 1/2 inch of mini pine bark nuggets. What that does is holds the water in a little bit, keeps the water from evaporating so fast, and also it keeps my soil temperature a little bit cooler. So let's talk about the review of container gardening. The finishing touches is your mulch. We've talked about containers. We've talked about soil. We've talked about plants. Maintaining, how are you going to maintain your garden through your growing season? And then you're going to know your limitations. What that means is you're going to know your budget, you're going to know your style, and your physical limitations. This concludes my program on container gardening. Now then, Tom and Suzanne, we can open it up for questions.
Thanks. Thanks, Connie. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Yeah. Anybody can. I hope I was trying to get everybody to be muted. I hope they're not muted. Somebody try to say something now.
This is Barry. I have a question because I can't type. Can I ask a question? I can't type.
Sure.
That's right.
Yes.
Yes, you can do both.
When you have a tree in a pot, how do you take care of roots and things as that tree grows bigger? I have some small fruit trees, and how do you change the soil or work the soil, and what do you do with that after 2 or 3 years with a tree?
If that were me, I would up-pot that tree to a larger container in about a year or 2. That's exactly how I would handle that. I would get some fresh soil in there and some fresh fertilizer, and just put it in a bigger pot. That's what you need to do.
And would you do that in the fall of the year?
Yes, sir, I would.
Now, I'm not sure what time of year they did it, but Connie and another friend of ours went to the Master Gardener Conference down in Baton Rouge. And when we went to the men's garden there, and they had trees in a pot, every 3 years, they took the tree out of the pot, laid it down and cut its roots back, and then put it back in the same pot. They had a great big pot that they had that tree in.
Yes. Yes.
Makes sense.
You want a big pot for a tree.
Hey, Connie, here's another question. It said, let's see, it said, how about something like sweet potatoes?
I know nothing about sweet potatoes. Someone else is going to have to answer that. Maybe Katie or somebody.
Okay. I think you can do it. It'd be like growing potatoes, but yeah, I don't know if I know how to do it that well either.
But that's not the same as sweet potato vine, which is a common container plant,
Right.
correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
So was the question about sweet potatoes as a vegetable or the vine?
I don't know. David Gardner wanted to know.
I have grown sweet potatoes in pots. It worked great.
Sounds good.
I don't know what, yeah, what?
Laura
How
asked,
big of a pot?
Laura said, Connie, you sound like an artist. Are you an artist? Or did you have any training in art?
No, sir. I have a degree in interior design.
Yep, that's the same.
Actually, Connie, could you explain the color wheel?
Yes, ma'am.
Because that's not something that everybody knows about, and as an artist,
Okay.
that's really important.
It looks like this. And what you do is, I don't know if I can show it in that space, but what you do is, if you think to yourself, you want red plants, okay, in your container garden, then you want a green contrast or a complementary color. You see that a lot at Christmas time, red and green. It works great together. And then if you have some split complementary colors, and I won't go into that. But anyway, this is an excellent tool, and and I'll tell you why. It teaches you how to put color together, not only in your container garden, but in your garden, period. So you just move it around like that. And if you select a color, let's say you want blue, then you're going to go across the color wheel to yellow, okay? And blue and yellow looks beautiful together, okay? I have some purple and orange. That's another on the color wheel. I have some purple plants in my garden, and I have some orange milkweed. And when those come up together, it's absolutely beautiful. But anyway, that's how you do the color wheel. And you may want monochromatic colors like beige or yellow or something like that, and that's fine. You can put a yellow daisies in a container garden. That will be fine. That's what's called a monochromatic color. It's just one color. So that's how a color wheel works. But I urge you to get on the internet and read about the color wheel and how you can put your colors together in a container.
Mm-hmm. And there are the hot colors are like reds, yellows, oranges, and then there are the cool colors.
Yes, now
the greens and purple. So if you can talk about, and also can you use the color wheel if you have like as your container and then the plants as part of as a contrast to the whatever your container color is?
Okay, now what I think what you're talking about is, let's say that you want a vivid red, okay? Then you can cool that down with some monochromatic colors like that gray or white in that planter, okay? It's like that. Now you can go directly across the color wheel and select some green, okay? Maybe some green foliage plant. You don't have to have a bloom on everything. You know, you can, like a sweet potato vine, you know, something like that. It doesn't have color it doesn't have blooms on it. So you can actually use that.
Other question on the chat line. Chat line said, do you do anything different, annuals versus perennials? And then during the winter, do you do anything in the winter?
Sure, you can do lots of things in the winter. You can put spruces. You can put spruces in containers and any kind of evergreen. Evergreens make a beautiful winter planter. And I had several examples of that, and I should have put one in there. But, you know, in the fall, you're going to add your, hang on. You're going to add your mums in there in the fall, and then in the winter I would pull those out, and I might have some. If your planter can take freeze and thaw, then you can leave that planter out and put in some winter, you know, like ivy and things like that that stay green in the winter. I've seen beautiful boxwoods with ivy around them in the winter that are beautiful. They'll stay green.
One of the questions said, and I think we already said it, we're going to send out the list of thrillers, fillers, and spillers. Connie's going to send that, or we're going to get it out to everyone who wants it. And I think David Gardner is still asking questions about soil prep for real vegetables, you know, vegetable plants, maybe growing potatoes. I know Katie has some talks on that. She might be giving a talk on that coming up. So maybe we can leave that for later, unless you have something to add, Connie.
I don't have anything on vegetables. I know nothing about growing vegetables in containers because I don't cook. So I know nothing.
Connie, I have a question. I have some Christmas cactuses that are not looking very good, and I can't seem to find an answer about is cactus dirt good by itself for Christmas cactuses?
Okay. Now, do you have that Christmas cactus in a good aerated soil? In other words, they want a lot of sand.
No, I use straight cactus dirt.
Okay, that's the first thing. And the second thing I have that I pulled off the internet and that I will make available just to you all is a listing of the UT in the UT publication. It has what's wrong with your plant. And this would be an excellent tool for us to have at the information table. And it lists here if there's a nitrogen deficiency, you know, or a phosphorus deficiency. I didn't talk much about that, but, you know, with nitrogen, if you see a nitrogen deficiency, you're going to see some yellow leaves on your plant. And it's just not going to look very vibrant. And phosphorus, it's going to be a slow growing. It's not going to grow very fast. And with potassium's hard to see a deficiency with, but you might want to look at some brown spots on your plant or brown veins or anything like that that indicate a low potassium level in your plant. But if you all want me to, I'll make available to you, or else you can pull it straight off of the UT publication, and it tells you what's wrong with your plant if you have a problem with it.
Well, how much sand should I put mixed with my cactus?
I would put a lot of sand. Cacti loves a lot of sand. It needs a lot of aeration. I would quite possibly put more sand than I put potting soil.
Okay.
Mhm.
Do you agree, Tom?
Yeah, I think so. It all depends on your pot too. I was looking at your picture here, and in the past we've had seminars on hypertufa. Do you know anything about that, or maybe that's another down the road?
When I first become a master gardener, Jane at the food bank had some classes on hypertufa, and I know a little bit about it. I know that it's porous, but I don't remember the formula on how to make it. I probably have that in some of my notes somewhere, but I don't remember how you actually put it together and make it.
Yeah, I think somebody, I think somebody else ought to give a talk on that. If anybody's listening and wants
Sure,
that, sure,
yeah,
that'd be a great little talk.
yeah.
Well, I'd like to throw in that a Christmas cactus is not a true cactus.
Mm-hmm.
So it wants perlite in its soil because it wants a light soil. Because a Christmas cactus is really something that grows on a tree in normal conditions.
Okay, I stand corrected. Thank you, Patsy.
I
Maybe
have
we need to look it up on the internet and see,
Well, that's
see
another-
if what we
That's
need for
another,
that. soil.
that's another talk too. We could talk about Christmas, Easter, and Thanksgiving cacti.
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
There's just all kinds of things we could do here.
I have one comment. Connie, at some point in your talk, I think you were, especially when you were talking about fertilizers, I think you were holding something up and all we had was the slide. Were you showing anything when you were talking about, I just got the feeling that maybe you were there was something you wanted to show, or maybe you were just talking generally. You were talking about Osmocote and a couple of other fertilizers, and I got the feeling you had something in your hand, but
She did.
maybe I was just,
Mostly see, I could see her.
oh, I couldn't. See, I had the screen up all the way.
I could see her, she was superimposed in the corner.
Oh, I didn't,
There's a different thing you can push on your to see the person who's talking plus the slides.
okay, all right. So I just didn't know if everybody was as inept as I was and didn't get it right. Okay.
okay. Is there anything else?
Very good. Got a lot of nice comments about your talk, Connie.
Thank you.
Tom, you mentioned hen and chicks. Do you put sand with the hen and chicks to grow them in a pot or no?
I can't hear him. What did he say?
With the hen and chicks, would you put sand in the soil for hen and chicks in a container pot? Can you hear me?
Okay, Tom, you're gonna have to help me out. He's breaking up.
Okay. Yeah, Carlton asked, do you put hen and chicks in a pot with all that?
What I do
Yeah.
when I make my container is I put a coffee filter in the bottom. Now, we had a special about this at the Myth of container potting at our Chattanooga market one year, and Tom pointed out to me that a coffee filter is a myth. Putting anything in the bottom of your pot is a myth, but I personally do that simply because I don't want that soil coming down in my drainer pot, my drainer tray, and filling it up, and if I overflow it, then it's going to make a mess. So that's the reason that I do it. I put a coffee filter in the bottom of my pot. And now I've read several articles on putting aggregate in the bottom of your pot. Not only does it make it heavy, it also does not help with the drainage. Now I read several articles stating that.
Connie,
So it's your choice. It's whatever you want to do.